17 years. That's how far this new trailer just jumped us forward. Not 12 like the book. 17. And that one number tells you more about what Denis Villeneuve is planning than any marketing copy ever could. If you don't know me yet, I'm the guy who reads the fine print on movie contracts for fun, who tracks IMAX ticket allocations like other people track fantasy football, and who has strong, unshakable opinions about whether Paul Atreides is a hero or a war criminal. Today we're talking about the brand new Dune, Part 3 trailer, what it's hiding, what it's not telling you, and why this movie might be the riskiest thing Hollywood releases all year. Not because of the budget, because of what the story is actually about. Let's get into it. Dune, Part 3 lands in theaters December 18th, 2026. Same trilogy, same director, same core cast, but this is not Part 2 with bigger worms. This is Villeneuve adapting Dune Messiah, the 1969 follow-up novel. And Messiah is a different animal entirely. The first two films were an origin story. This one is a takedown. Timothée Chalamet is back as Paul Atreides. Zendaya returns as Chani. And based on the footage we just got, their relationship is the emotional spine of this entire film. In a new trailer, Chani throws Paul's own words back at him. He promised her he'd never take power in his name. He took the whole galaxy instead. That's not a romance subplot. That's the thesis of the movie. Here's where it gets interesting for anyone who's actually read the books, because Warner Brothers picked people who fit these roles almost uncomfortably well. Robert Pattinson plays Skittily, a Tleilaxu-face dancer, which in Herbert's universe means a shapeshifter who can wear anyone's face and anyone's voice. Pattinson's had a stacked year already, sharing scenes with Zendaya in the drama and again in Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Now he's playing a character built entirely around deception, and the trailer shows him plotting a regime change with Florence Pugh's Princess Irulan, who immediately calls him an idiot for signing his own death warrant. That's a great one-liner, but it's also exactly how careful Herbert was about consequences. Nobody in this universe gets away clean. Jason Momoa is back too, and this is where the article headlines get a little misleading. Some outlets are calling his character hate. Book readers will know why that name matters. Duncan Idaho died at the end of the first Dune novel. In Messiah, he comes back as a Gola, a clone grown from dead cells, and for most of the book, he goes by the name Hate before his old memories resurface. So when you see Momoa's face and hear the name Hate, that's not a new character. That's Duncan Idaho's resurrection arc, and it's one of the most quietly devastating threads in the entire saga. In the trailer, Momoa's character says Paul has conquered the galaxy and destroyed thousands of worlds. When Paul asks what he thinks of that, the response is blunt. I think you're way beyond redemption. That's Duncan Idaho, the character who trained Paul as a child, telling him he's a monster. Isaac de Bancoul debuts as Ferric, a Freeman Nabe, a tribal leader among the desert people who helped put Paul on the throne in the first place. Anya Taylor-Joy returns as Alia, Paul's younger sister, and the trailer gives us a glimpse of her covered in blood and screaming, which lines up with just how strange and powerful Alia becomes in the books. Charlotte Rampling, Javier Bardem, Rebecca Ferguson, and Josh Brolin all return, and we finally get to see Paul and Chani's twins, Leto II and Ganima, played by Nakoa Momoa and Ida Brooke. Small detail worth noting. Nakoa Momoa is Jason Momoa's real son. That's the kind of casting choice that doesn't need a press release to feel intentional. Now let's talk about that time skip because it's a genuinely strange choice, and I don't think it's an accident. Dune Messiah, the novel, takes place 12 years after the events of Dune. Villeneuve moved it to 17. Why at 5 years? My read is that it's about the twins. In the book, Leto II and Ganima are old enough to have distinct personalities and prophetic visions of their own by the time the story kicks off. A 5-year buffer gives the film room to age them into characters who can actually carry weight on screen, rather than just existing as symbols of Paul's legacy. It also gives Villeneuve more room to show the jihad, the holy war fought in Paul's name, actually reshaping the galaxy instead of just being mentioned in dialogue. Villeneuve himself has described this film as an action thriller, which is a strange way to describe a story that's really about a man realizing his own prophecy has become a trap he can't escape. But that framing might be smart. Messiah is a quieter, more political book than Dune or Dune Messiah's predecessor, turning the political maneuvering into thriller mechanics, conspiracies, assassination plots, betrayals inside the palace. Gives Villeneuve a way to keep the pacing tight while still hitting the book's core idea. Power without limits eventually consumes the person holding it. Here's the part of this story that has nothing to do with sandworms and everything to do with box office chess. Dune. Part 3 releases on December 18th, 2026. So does Avengers: Doomsday. Same day, same weekend, two of the biggest franchises in the industry going head-to-head. Online, people have already nicknamed it Doomsday, and it is genuinely one of the more aggressive release date collisions in recent memory. Here's the twist that a lot of the coverage buried. Dune. Part 3 secured the IMAX slot for that opening weekend in the US. Avengers: Doomsday did not. If you've ever tried to book Dune tickets, you already know how much that format matters to this franchise specifically. Villeneuve shoots with IMAX cameras, and previous Dune films made a meaningful chunk of their box office from premium large format screens. Losing the biggest screens in the country on your opening weekend is not a small disadvantage for Marvel here. Some of the first IMAX 70mm ticket batches for Dune already sold out within minutes of going on sale, months before the film even opens. So this isn't just two big movies sharing a release date. It's a genuine test of which franchise pulls harder on premium formats versus raw brand recognition. That's a fascinating data point for anyone who follows the business side of Hollywood, and we'll probably be talking about the actual numbers back here in this same spot come January. Villeneuve has been consistent about one thing. This is his last Dune film. Chalamet has said the same. Messiah closes out the story arc they set out to tell, and by most accounts, this also has the shortest runtime of the three films, which after two movies that both ran well past 2.5 hours, is honestly a relief for anyone planning a theater trip. But Warner Brothers is not walking away from this universe. Dune. Prophecy, the HBO prequel series set roughly 10,000 years before Paul Atreides, has already been renewed for a second season, continuing to explore the Bene Gesserit sisterhood long before any of the events in the films. And here's where it gets interesting for the long game. Herbert's original novels kept going well past Messiah, into Children of Dune, God Emperor of Dune, and further, books that get significantly stranger and shift focus away from Paul entirely. Villeneuve has said he's done, but that doesn't mean Warner Brothers is done adapting. If Part 3 performs the way the first two films did, don't be surprised if Children of Dune becomes the next conversation. Just with a different filmmaker at the helm, here's my honest read. And you can disagree with me in the comments, I'd actually like that. Adapting Dune Messiah is a genuinely bold move for a franchise coming off two enormous commercial hits. The first two films worked because audiences got to watch an underdog rise. Messiah is the opposite story. It's about tearing that same hero down and forcing him to look at the cost of his own myth. That's a much harder sell to a mainstream blockbuster audience, and it's exactly the kind of story that usually gets softened or skipped in franchise filmmaking. The fact that Villeneuve is doing it anyway, and doing it as his final word on the series, tells me he cares more about finishing Herbert's actual point than about giving audiences a clean, satisfying victory lap. Whether that pays off commercially against a Marvel crossover event on the same weekend is genuinely one of the more interesting open questions in movies this year. December 18th is going to answer a lot of these questions at once. Until then, we've got a trailer full of blood, betrayal, and a very confident Robert Pattinson to pick apart. If you want more of this kind of breakdown, subscribe, and let me know down in the comments which character you think steals this movie. My money's on Momoa. It's always Momoa.